All right, we're here. We're here with Derek Stevens yet again. Thank you so much. You had a big day, busy day, because of a big announcement. But people who listen to this podcast are very interested in not only the news, but maybe if you're open to doing that, to talking about some of the backstory about how this came about. Everybody sees the flashy headline. But you obviously are living and breathing this every day, and you've been doing that for months. So hopefully there are things you can talk about now that maybe they haven't been discussed before. But thank you so much, as always, for taking time to chat.
Scott, great to be back on Vital Vegas. I feel very honored once again.
You are the most frequent guest. Other people have asked to be on, and I've said no just to make sure you're the most frequent guest. But so let's talk about the big announcement today, and it was big for me personally, and I think for downtown, and I think for Vegas, because we've obviously been watching the progress of Circa during a very challenging time, to say the least. So let's talk about the big announcement. What is it? I'll let you say it.
Well, the end game here is the fact that we're going to open with a split date opening, and that's something that I don't believe has ever happened in Las Vegas. So, just going back, when we announced Circa in January of 2019, we had the whole Gantt chart laid out, and we were going to open, right before the end of the year in 2020. And, we structured a lot of contracts in a manner that were done in a way where there were some great incentives for the general contractor, for McCarthy, and for Trey Builders to finish early, and some pretty heavy penalties if they didn't. And some of that is really tied into, the current tax law, where you have the ability to, depreciate some equipment quicker. So we really gave the project manager and Trey Builders and McCarthy some of those benefits by incentivizing to do things earlier. And everything's motoring along pretty well. And I think over the months, in 2019, you were able to take some great pictures over there, and I appreciate those pictures because you had some that I'd never had seen before, and it kind of kept everybody a little bit apprised of what was going on. And we had our webcam up there, so a lot of people could see that, and until the tower got bigger than where the viewing screen was. But everything was kind of motored along pretty well. And then we get to New Year's Eve of 2019, and all of a sudden we had an operations meeting, and we all thought, oh man, think about this, Circa's no longer next year. So come, we actually said this on New Year's Eve, come tomorrow, Circa opens later this year. So it started, started hitting home, first week of January. And, we start thinking about, okay, what do we have to do? We got to get the hiring. We got to, you start working your way backwards, and everything's working its way backwards from a date that we knew was going to be in December. Now, earlier, I would say, like right on New Year's Eve of 2019, we knew with Trey that we were tracking early. So we knew internally this wasn't going to be a December 28th thing. We were tracking, maybe it was like we got up to December 20th, and then we start thinking, well, right before Christmas, and then we start tracking, well, what about December 10th, and then start thinking, well, NFR's in town, maybe just before NFR, the beginning of December. So all of a sudden, internally, we're talking about moving everything forward. And then we thought, okay, what about really pushing it? And what about maybe Thanksgiving weekend? And that was the last date that kind of had floated in people's minds to open the property. And then all of a sudden, in third week of February, started no longer getting ahead of schedule. We were pacing. By the last week of February, we started getting some of these moments. Hey, we got a little bit of a problem here. Hey, that glass that was supposed to come in on a ship, it's going to be delayed because some of the plants overseas are down. Like, we've got a problem. We got a problem with some carpet and shipments and imports. And then the first week of March was when the real big one hit, and that was where we're running a raised floor So just like we eventually put into the D, but the whole floor is about 18 inches above where the concrete is, and that allows us to run all of our electrical. All the slot machines get connected underneath. Therefore, you don't have any of the poles and everything else like that. And we're doing something pretty unique, and we always thought that this was going to be one of the greatest things, is we are running all of our air from the ground up. So we're going to have a much different air environment. We always thought that would be kind of cool. Let's kind of promote the casino that we want. We want people to go in, have fun. We want them to be able to have a cigar and have a smoke. I know you're not happy about that. But if we're able to do that in a way where we have the most efficient air filtration system and the air is always going up, as opposed to forcing air down like in almost every other building in the country. This way, you can have an environment where somebody could have a cigar, have a smoke, and the air goes up. So all the heat and all the cooling is coming from the floor, and it's a pretty unique concept. It's a little bit more efficient. You're able to save some electricity that way, because it doesn't make sense to cool the ceiling area to 72 degrees when really your comfort is only in the 6 feet from the floor up. And for a lot of reasons, that was a big decision we made a year and a half ago, but we thought it was going to be a great thing. So what ends up happening was the raised floor manufacturing companies out of Pennsylvania, and then first week of March, Pennsylvania gets shut down. Wow. So all of a sudden, we have a critical component that we can't figure. There's no alternative. And the manufacturer wants to work, but they're in state-ordered shutdown, and that's when the uh-ohs or what's going on do the oh shit's really started happening.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, we also had on the site, Trey and McCarthy came to us and said, we're having a little bit of trouble getting people up in the tower. At that point in time, we were up 25 stories, and with some of the new requirements coming in for health and safety, man lifts and the construction elevators ended up being a problem. We were able to previously having 20 people in a man lift, and then it got reduced down to 10, 8, 4, then down to 2. Well, when you think about, on a floor, there might only be 20 people working. So the floor is not a problem. Everybody's socially distanced. I mean, you're never going to really see anybody else. But the problem is when you multiply it by 20 floors times 20 people, it's 400 people having to get up a tower. And at 2 people a time, you couldn't do it. So we did everything, from starting times at 7 a.m., stagger them 6:30, 6, 5:30, 5, 4:30, 4 in the that type of thing. But you still can't get people in the tower.
So you're talking about in one of these construction elevators that there's a limit of 2 construction dudes making that trip up to what amounts to the construction site if you're working in those upper floors, 2 at a time. So that could be, if you're talking about 400 people, that doesn't seem doable at all. Like no. You could get dozens of guys, but if 400 are supposed to be working, you're talking about, so it's that oh shit moment of all the best laid plans, not only not early, but it's starting to look like, there's bigger pieces of this with supplies, imports, and the restrictions in addition to all that. So, and that was happening kind of March, where kind of the reality started to set in. Interesting, because that optimism about not only people have thought that it was overly ambitious to be December 2020 to then be going, maybe we could do this in November. That must have been a turning point of everybody going, any one of these things might have affected our schedule, but now you've got it cumulatively a bunch of things happening at once.
Yeah, exactly. It was one thing when you have to get 20 people up to the 12th floor, and at 2 at a time, it takes about 45 seconds up, 45 seconds down, so a minute and a half to fill 1 floor. But by the time you got to get to the 25th floor, it's well over a minute and 15 seconds to get up, and then a minute. So all of a sudden you run out of time. You can't even load a floor. So this was all kind of happening here in that second week of March. And then we started slipping on schedule. Like, well, it's not going to be Thanksgiving. We'll still hit December. And then all of a sudden, well, it'll be the middle of December. Well, we're going to be real tight to hit New Year's Eve. We're like, okay, we're in deep trouble, and then our bankers and lenders are calling, how things going? They're going great. They're just great. And a lot of our bankers are based out of New York, so they were impacted a bit earlier than maybe some other states were, and they were worried. And at that point in time, we talked to the guys at Trade Builders, and they get with McCarthy and said, we got to come up with an alternative here. What can we do? What can we do? In the meantime, we got operations going on, and cancellations are starting to hit. We're coming up to our biggest weekend of the year, with the absolute dream schedule of St. Patrick's Day on a Tuesday night, rolling right into March Madness, so we're ready to go. And then all of a sudden rumors start happening. Well, we're going to have a problem. And then boom, you got casino shut down. And everyone, I think, was kind of in shock. And at that point in time, we can't get our raised floor we need because Pennsylvania is still shut down. Every customer's backing out, or we have to back them out because we're shut down. The concerns of managing the business and all of our employees are at the forefront here. So you have these issues to try to handle, and then we don't know how the hell we're going to build this building. So anyway, they came together and they said, well, as opposed to losing a lot of the crew, they were very excited about how great the crew was over at Circa. And that's all the different trades, it's just the combination, all the different trades coming together. They didn't want to lose them. And also remember at that point in time, the sphere was kind of going to closure. There was all kinds of construction related, anxiety around, and there was anxiety with what was happening in Allegiant Stadium and concerns about Resorts World. And then, in Nevada, it's 100,000 construction jobs directly and indirectly, and pretty significant industry. So there's all these types of stresses. But they came up with an idea. Said if we move all of our crew, we move them to the first 5 floors, called the podium, from the basement steakhouse through the first and second floor, the casino, and then that's all the bars and all the retail and the restaurants. And then the outdoor pool amphitheater on 4 and 5 in Garage Mahal, we can get that done early. I said, wow, okay, so you guys came up with a plan. That sounds great. How early? They said, well, okay, well, we're going to work on it right now. But we'll let you know in a week. So anyway, they did some work, and they came back and they said, we think we can hit it in the last week of October. I said, whoa. He said, but here's the trade-off. No hotel until New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, well, now you gave us something to think about. I said, but this is kind of outside the scope of our authority. Because in Nevada, there's a rule that was instituted. I never went back and looked, but it's been around a long time. I think decades or something like mm-hmm. that you can't open a hotel, casino resort without a minimum of 200 hotel rooms. And I said, well, I have to go to the Gaming Control Board. So I was fortunate that during this whole pandemic time period, I'd been frequently talking to the chairwoman of the Nevada Gaming Control Board, Sandra Morgan. So I was able to give her a call and said, hey, I got an idea to run by you. But before our crews start doing too much work on this, I'd like to know what your thoughts were. And I went through the whole deal, like, well, this is kind of a unique situation, but everything in 2020 is unique. I think this is a win-win for everybody. It'd be good for our property. We could open up earlier. It'd be good for Las Vegas to open up early. It'd be good for gaming revenue. So I think all the different constituencies were covered. But what do you think? And she said, well, let me think about it a little bit. And she was right back to me, I think, within a day or so. She said, yeah, I understand the concept. Can you have your compliance team put together a report and present it? And we did. And it was shortly thereafter that she said, I understand what you're doing. I think this is a good idea. So we will approve this. And we also had a number of things we put in there. We said it's not as if we're asking to delay the hotel. It's not as if I'm going to create something where we have a big tower that will sit there abandoned for 10 years. We are absolutely committed to finishing that, and I had to, because in our lender agreement, that the hotel tower and the hotel rooms were part of our minimum facility. So I have to finish it, or else it would be a technical default. So we went through all those elements, and the Gaming Control Board was just great to work with, and unique situation, unique time, and they approved it. So that's how we initially got to this potential for a split opening.
So you haven't looked into what this rule is about the 200 rooms. Do you have any sense of why that rule exists? Because I would think, I think most people know that when you do a resort, a casino resort, that the rooms really support the other amenities and the other way around, right? The rate that you get for a room added into the mix of gaming and other amenities are part of what make the resort profitable. But do you have any idea why that rule, it seems so arbitrary, 200 rooms? And like you said, it's been around forever. So I'm curious what the original kind of purpose was for that rule. And now it'll be interesting to see if others in the future are pointing back at Circa going, look, Circa got an exemption. We don't know why that rule exists, but can we get the Circa exemption for that rule? Interesting.
Well, I think the rule makes a lot of sense, and the reason is because, in more recent times, I think people would remember when the Lucky Dragon came up. That you had to have the 200 rooms. I think Lucky Dragon opened with 202 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But the reason is, to get a non-restricted gaming license, you've got to have elements of a resort along with it. It just precludes investments that could turn into just some dumpy pachinko slot parlors that have no, that wouldn't necessarily represent Las Vegas appropriately. So I like the idea. I mean, I like the idea now that I'm in the business, but I also like the idea before, because it just prevents some real cheap, junky little Quonset hut building going up that's a slot parlor.
Yeah. So you're assured of, if you're going to do rooms, you're probably going to do other things that kind of elevate everything, and it's not just one of these corner kind of pub. All due respect to pubs that have gambling, but it's a bigger commitment. It's a bigger investment up front, and you kind of know what you're getting into. And having them happen together, as you said, the temptation might be for somebody to go, well, I'm going to promise you a resort, but I'm really just going to open the casino, and I don't even have to look for the financing for the other part. I'm just in it for the gaming or something. So at that point, unprecedented as far as you know, to get that sign off from gaming to do these as two separate things. I love it because while I will be staying in the hotel tower, there's a good likelihood that I will be spending much, much more time in the casino, at the bars and restaurants. So this worked out perfectly for me. And as you said, I don't even think you need to make the case that it's great for Las Vegas and great for downtown, because new right now, just as a conversation piece, as a new destination, as a new reason for people to visit, I think all those things definitely make Circa very appealing, not just to me personally, but which is most important, but to everybody and in the town overall. And part of that, just that feeling of that there was some momentum that was lost. And obviously a pandemic is, you can't really measure it in terms of interrupted business, but you kind of can. And you can measure it in terms of the momentum of downtown, especially being interrupted. So this gives people something to look forward to. And as you said, it's not years away. It's this year. And now I'm counting on my fingers. It's like 1/3 of a year away from opening, which is very cool.
Yeah. So the fact that we were able to put that date out today was pretty great. I think. In the year 2020, the first half of the year has not been a lot of great things to talk about. So I love the fact we're able to put that out there. Hey, one other anecdote about the construction, I think is more funny than anything, but I think people would like it. Some of the schedule that we had originally was due to noise-related issues, and when you're lifting these big steel beams, you have to have road closures, and on certain days, when you jump a crane, you can't have any human beings within a couple hundred feet. Well, a lot of this happened to do with the noise restrictions. So one day, probably end of I would say beginning of May, these guys at Trey come over and run into McCarthy guys, and they say, "Hey, listen." And I'm up there in one of the floors, and they said, "Listen." And this was like a Tuesday in May, and what you heard was nothing. You heard it was just nothing. They go, "Hey, we used to have to send everybody home at 4:00 because we can't upset 1,000 hotel rooms at the Cal and 1,000 rooms at the Plaza and 2,400 rooms at the Golden Nugget, and all the people coming up and down Main Street that are working at City Hall, and then all the lawyers working around. Look around. You could sit here on a Tuesday afternoon, and you might not have a car drive up Main Street for 10 minutes." So what they did was they quickly got additional crews, and now all of a sudden we started working a lot more hours in the tower. So they went from being really behind, so they caught up quite a bit during this time period. Now we're back to the regular schedule, but they had about 4 weeks that they were working like double because there wasn't a soul out here. So that's why, if you notice, like in the last couple of weeks before all the casinos reopened, if you noticed how all the steel went up to the top of Circa and all the glass was going up, you can't do the glass when all these people are. So all of a sudden, their schedule got compressed. So now, not only did we get to announce the October 28th date, but now the probability of potentially being earlier than December 28th is there for the hotel portion. So it's just a real crazy set of circumstances, and I just love working with these guys who are so creative to come up with it. I certainly couldn't have. I love the philosophy, and I love going after it, but you got to have the right people and the right teams to be able to come up with it. And Trey and McCarthy really need a tip of the cap on this one.
Yeah, I've always just really been impressed with the stuff that they've done for you. I think they've done the bulk of your, the expansion at Golden Gate into the La Bayou footprint, and they've done, it up here. They did the Bar Canada. I think that was all them, because if they're doing a good job, why go anywhere else? But it was interesting because you also said that kind of taking an additional opportunity from, it really is like a lemonade out of a lemon situation, like with your escalators at the D. That was the example you gave of. Why don't you tell people what happened? Because I think it's a microcosm of what happened at Circa, is kind of like taking advantage of an opportunity as it presented itself.
Yeah, the three escalators inside the D. We were at the point where we're all scratching our head thinking about, oh man, what a terrible project this is going to be. I can't believe. To me, I'm still thinking those things were so expensive that they're brand new. Well, my brother says, "Hey, I got to tell you, you're getting close. It's going to be the 10-year maintenance time frame. They got to be completely rebuilt." I said, "Okay, what's that going to take?" He goes, "Well, going to be about 3 to 4 weeks a piece, and they got to tear them all apart, and there's going to be parts everywhere." I'm like, oh my God, well, we need to have 2 of them because you got to have one going up, one going down. So it's 4 weeks, then 4 weeks, and 4 weeks, and I'm thinking, oh man, we got to keep punting it. Maybe we can do one this summer when it's slow, and then we'll do one the next summer, and then we go out in these escalators like, man, these aren't going to make it that long. So what ended up happening was, I think it was in the month of April, we were able to get all the parts, and the escalator company came in, and we tore it all up. So we got rid of all of the old the 3 old ones, and got all 3 of them ready to go. So it avoided a lot of dodging and weaving when people are, leaving Lombard to go to the upstairs restroom, so nobody got hurt, and we were able to keep things up and going.
Yeah, I mean, it solved a lot of problems. So, any other kind of associated issues with Circa at all? Like you've had these partners. It really has not been a disruption for them at all. You've got these restaurateurs who are coming in to work with you. You've got the retail folks. You've got a whole kind of pool operation. You've got your sports book operation. Like any other things that kind of have been on the radar. I know a big part of your business is going to be the pool and that amphitheater kind of experience. How is all that fitting into this? Is the expectation that a lot of that will be kind of in the rearview mirror by that time, or are you having to still kind of figure out, well, we're going to open that first 5 floors, but if we're not allowed to do, pools in a certain way, we're still going to have to adjust for that. Like, I assume that's all. It really is fluid. People say it's fluid. Of course, the pool, fluid. But, in general, those things are still a big question mark. It didn't look like you were going to do any shows. So that kind of live entertainment component might not be a component, but any other things related to Circa that might be of interest?
Yeah, I would tell you that with all of our restaurateurs, we met with all of them, and all but one of them had the same story given to them, and it was like, hey, just want to let you know, once you fly into town, we're gonna start preparing for an opening date, and then didn't really tell anybody, but then came in, hey, I know you're planning on December, but we're opening October 28th, and you guys got to be ready 10 days before that, and you got to start moving. We're going to start moving your kitchen equipment in June and July. And I think for all of our restaurateurs, every one of them, their teams, their eyebrows went up, their smiles got wide, and not one group said, oh, we can't meet this deadline. They all left jacked up thinking about, man, this is great. So I was excited about that. One restaurant that unfortunately is not going to open October 28th, but it'll open when the hotel opens. It's not because of them. It's because of us. And the reason is currently the eastern crane, which goes right through the building, goes right through the center of 8 East. It goes right through their restaurant.
Oh, geez.
So they can't open October 28th because that crane will actually still be going through the center of that restaurant. They would have liked to, but they're going to be ready to go here when the hotel opens. So once we open the hotel, we'll be able to open 8 East. We will be able to open up the hotel tower, and then we will open up our rooftop venue, which we have not officially announced yet.
Oh,
but we're ready to roll.
Well, you can see, that's interesting because you can see some magical things happening up there that I've had difficulty describing to people because it doesn't look like it's like the rest of the building. It's being it looks like it's elevated. So can you share anything? You don't have to say a name. Why do I feel like I've seen it somewhere? You haven't put it out, right? It was some kind of throwback name. Man alive, I don't think I'm allowed to say it if I heard it. But, but so what else you got on that? Because that's going to be quite a view. I keep hoping that one of your construction guys will be up there and take a picture from that vantage point because I haven't really seen any way of seeing what that view is going to be like, especially at night. But it looked pretty spectacular, or I imagine it to be pretty spectacular. So any other goodies you can share about that thing? Because you're definitely doing it. It's oddly shaped from what I can see. It almost looks like a triangle. Pointy shape. I don't know. What else you got on that?
That's a pretty good description. We thought that was the one, kind of signature feature of the property that we didn't talk about. We talked a lot about the 2-story outdoor stadium, amphitheater and all that type of stuff for the pool, and then we talked about the sports book a lot, but the rooftop we kind of stayed away from. Yeah, it's going to be a signature feature at the level of those amenities. Yeah, it is shaped. When you see the steel up there right now, it's kind of a head scratcher. But I can tell I've been up there, and yeah, we're gonna post some pictures of the views from up there. Not too far down the road. I think we're gonna have the name announced and everything like that. I think in July, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that that's going to open when the hotel opens and everything. It should be a very unique attraction.
Oh, great to hear. So the one other thing that I wanted to ask about. So early on, I saw the windows over at the, what do you call that, the lay down yard or whatever the kids call it. And then in the renderings and some of the videos, you can see a definite lighted element of the side. I guess it would be it's the south-facing side of Circa. And maybe I read too much into it, but it looked like it would have the capacity to have something display on the side of the hotel. So is there anything you can share about that, if that's true, if what it might be like, anything at all? Is that another one of those reveal things, or am I just imagining this? Because in the video, it looked like there were things happening on the side of the building that might have been kind of creative license on the part of whoever did the video, because it was a rendering, but it looked like there was the potential for something to display on the side of the hotel, like in a large scale. Anything?
Yeah, so like on the side that faces the pool or faces the strip, we've got horizontal lighting components that are all in there. So like those white stripes that you can kind of see over there, those will be lighting components. We'll start testing those out, I would say, maybe in 8-10 weeks, something like that. Okay. But on the other side of the building, facing north, that's where we're going to have our large format video screen. So it'll be a massive video screen.
Facing away from the strip toward the valley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of right toward the intersection of the 15 and the 95, which is the most the most traveled intersection in the state. Correct.
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you you're always so diplomatic, because it takes me a minute. So what's that going to be like? Holy crap. I got it now. It's marketing. I thought it was just entertainment, but there's probably a lot of cars going by.
There'll be some marketing. There'll be some entertainment. There'll be a lot of video, and it'll be bright. And
so nobody's talked about this though. Like I haven't heard anybody talking about that video screen at all.
Nobody's asked about it. You're the first guy to ask about it.
Well, it's because when I saw the windows, I saw a little thing underneath. It wasn't like what I'm seeing down the street. I assume I can say Resorts World. They're doing this kind of mesh, I guess, or something that goes over the windows, and it's the whole height of the building. So it sounds like there's something akin to that you're going for. But I was just curious, because when I see these big displays, I'm like, there's no way it can be at a resolution where you could show, say, a face or something more detailed. I'm assuming it can be red or green, and then sometimes red and green. But it sounds like this is a full-on something where you could do messaging that would be, restaurant-related or other elements of the resort, just, a big red arrow pointing at Circa. So I'm actually curious about what it is. Is it going to be the full height of the hotel?
Yeah, so for Circa on the north side, it'll be about 2/3 the height of the hotel, from the top down close to the podium or so, and we're doing it. We're doing it in a little bit different manner than maybe what, let's say that screen at T-Mobile that looks out on Toshiba Plaza or Resorts World. Everyone's done a little bit of a different product. So for us, our product will be pretty high resolution, probably the highest resolution out here. But in doing so, you don't want to do it in a manner where it's a mesh which blocks hotel room views, because at some point there's a trade-off. You can have some really great resolution if you do a mesh and you cover up all these hotel rooms, but it impacts a little bit of the guest experience. Now, the product that is going on Resorts World, I'm very impressed with what they're doing. We know that vendor very, very well. And, the element of Resorts World, why I think Resorts World is going to look great as well, is because the actual surface, the screen, so to speak, it's a massive surface. I mean, it's a massive building, and it's on like that U-shaped or V-shaped south side kind of curve. So that's going to be a pretty unique type thing. And I think now, we've seen some of the testing videos and stuff like that. It should look great over there. For us, we went with a little different idea. We went with something that had a little more density. It backs up to all of our elevator shafts are on the north side. So the service elevators, the guest elevators, all that. So what we're doing doesn't inhibit any views of the hotel rooms. But on the area where you've got emergency stairwells and elevators, we have a solid video wall that's going up.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So it's kind of, I guess you would say it's kind of akin to the one they did at Palms. It kind of runs, top to bottom, but you didn't, at Resorts World, it's very obvious that I think they're leaving holes for windows because of what you're talking about, trying to balance. We have this display, but also we're not going to block somebody's view because that's the selling point of the room. So,
yeah, exactly. Palms is the big difference with the Palms is a big curved arced screen. A lot of people don't realize that, but it's 180 degrees. It's a semicircle. Ours will be flat on the wall, and it's just a little bit of a different version.
Well, I'm glad you thought of that so many people drive by there because that had not occurred to me. I'm going to edit that part out so I'll make it sound like I thought of it and then that you confirmed.
Gotcha.
All right. Thanks so much, Derek. You are generous with your time as always. And I've expressed to you that one of the things that has made me saddest about the things that have unfolded, aside from the people obviously impacted by what's happened on the medical side, is that I haven't been able to really, it's hard to be celebratory during a time that feels sad, but just that level of excitement about Circa and, knowing you and the team and what this has meant to everybody, the energy and, even just to kind of the business overall. I'm glad and hopeful that we can get to a point where we can make that more the conversation than the conversation that's been had. And even a lot of what we've talked about today has had to do with some of the sad stuff. But I like the exciting I love the new smell of a casino. I love the new smell of a hotel. And it'll be exciting to hit all the restaurants and just do all this stuff that really attracted me to Vegas and to what you've been doing overall. So it's I would love to have this be, for me, it's a symbolic turning point because when you have that opening date, that means there's something to look forward to that's not kind of the ongoing conversation. Concern, obviously, but not having it overwhelm the excitement of something new in Vegas. So thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you for your time, and congratulations, because I think they are in order, because you and your team and your vendors and your partners have all had to do this dance, but I'm glad we're at a point where there's good news, and I can't wait to try everything. I'm probably just going to get a room for probably a month as soon as the rooms open, but I'm going to be in the casino from the day it opens as well. I might I'll bring a pillow and just stay the whole time because I'm just so excited about everything that's coming up. So thank you.
Well, Scott, thank you very much. Appreciate giving you the back of the house, behind the scenes deal, how this came together. So thank you.